Anna Kasparian breaks a funny story about this black gay man who pretty much scammed the BLM, defund the police movement to enrich himself. This is a funny one, guys. By the way, thank you so much for watching Bring the Asteroid. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Check out our YouTube store. We have really cute, well, cool, not cute, just cool and cute merch on there that I wear, my husband wears. We love it. And yeah, let's get into it.
In 2007, I lost him. He was shot and killed by Oklahoma Police Department. I lost my lifetime partner and my best friend to police violence during a routine traffic stop. The loss of his love and the loss of his life catapulted me into this work.
The man you just heard from is Brandon D. Anderson. In 2017, he said he had a plan to hold law enforcement accountable and reduce the need for policing in America. But it turns out that he was actually scamming his own nonprofit, which he formed for this mission, and screwing over his fellow advocates to finance a lavish lifestyle. So Anderson is the leader of Rahim AI, which he started because his fiance had allegedly been killed by an abusive cop, as you just heard from the video we showed you. Now, here is where we run into the first pretty big problem. The New York Times found no evidence of the killing that Mr. Anderson has described. No homicide in the entire state of Oklahoma involved a man named Rahim, nor did any match the particulars of the officer-involved death Mr. Anderson had described.
Yeah.
I wish the people he was working with, the actual advocates, were aware of that before they decided to dedicate their time and their energy to this nonprofit. But they didn't, and they did get screwed over. And what I think is also interesting about this story is like the internal debate about whether or not to let the authorities know about it, to which I say, of course you should, of course you should. But we'll get to that later.
No, the part about, they want to abolish police, but then he rips them off. And they don't know what to do. That's honestly hilarious.
Yeah, go to the police. Yeah, let them know.
But and so we'll get to it in a second. But look, guys like this are but they're the worst. And so, like, you pretending that you had someone that was near and dear to you and that whole emotional BS that you just did and when you made it up, it's gross, man. It's super gross. But there's two other things about it that really piss me off. Number one, when people actually care about movements, right? Police reform, fighting against sexism, racism, et cetera, all those things. False charges or false stories like this make people much more reluctant to help, especially when it's the leader of a group that's taking money. Then people go, I don't know what's a scam and what's not a scam. Well, I guess I'm not gonna give. And that is horrible, all for your own personal gain. It's unbelievable. And another part of it, guys, is that it poisons the well for everything. So now everybody thinks that everything's a grift because there's so many grifts, right? And a grift like,
and that's precisely what happens. I mean, people on the right are so quick to criticize these BLM sob stories because a lot of it is a grift, a lot of it is a scam. So rightfully so, rightfully.
Like this in such a spectacular way, then it makes people go, oh, you're doing something that you are saying that is gonna help people? Oh, it must be a grift.
But look, I agree with you. They do a lot of damage overall. However, I think that a lot of people, myself included, felt super energized and wanted to change things after what happened in 2020, right? And a lot of nonprofits started receiving this massive influx of like grants, donations, a lot of cash. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in recent years is that I had underestimated how many people will take advantage and find a way to literally like rip people off, or they'll exploit a movement in order to enrich themselves. And this is, I think, a perfect example of that. And so it might actually, in the future, convince people maybe I need to do a little more vetting before I get involved with this nonprofit. Because you hear nonprofit and you just assume, oh, well, they want to do good work. It's a nonprofit. But don't get it twisted. There's a lot of shady nonprofits out there where the people running the nonprofit are really just looking to enrich themselves. Just take a look at their salaries compared to what they're spending on the actual mission that they purport to care about.
Yep.
It reminds me a little bit of the Trump charity, where it was fake charity. He bought pictures of himself. He bought like things that he likes, memorabilia and stuff. Bought 2 different portraits of himself that were gigantic with money that people gave thinking that it was going to go to cancer and helping minority kids, et cetera. He had to pay a $25 million fine. I mean, these grifters like Donald Trump and Brandon Anderson are just ruin it for everyone involved.
They do, and I do feel really bad for, again, the individuals who spent their time and their energy working for this nonprofit, and then later they find that their resources were being squandered on this guy's lavish lifestyle. So nonetheless, like allegedly in honor of his fiance, Brandon, he founded this company, right? This nonprofit, Rahim AI. And here he is describing what the original goal was.
Rahim means compassion. And that's exactly what we think it's going to take to build a world free of police violence. We do this by building a Facebook Messenger bot that lets you report on your interactions with police. We then publish that data in real time to a public dashboard that's accessible by you and by the police. Our hope is that police departments will use this information as a means of designing interventions that speak to the specific concerns of their community.
Oh, and an ad. You gotta love the ads.
I'm a busy mom.
Excuse the ad, guys.
So this nonprofit was relatively small, basically taking in about $4.4 million throughout the nonprofit's lifetime, but it did receive this influx of cash in 2020, as a lot of nonprofits did for obvious reasons. And he claimed that this whole thing that he wanted to push for was a complaint system about cops, basically Yelp for police, but it didn't work because of some significant tech issues. So the entire premise of the group was kind of failing, but the organization still had money that Anderson had access to. So guess what he decided to do with it? Go on a shopping spree. So let's get to those details. It is amazing what people really value, like if they get their hands on some money, what they spend the money on. So let's take a look at that. He spent $2,000 at Bloomingdale's, then $2,800 at Bottega Veneta, an upscale Italian clothing store. After that, Saks, Alexander McQueen, and the online luxury goods store Farfetch. In all, Anderson spent $11,000 in charity money on clothing that year, according to financial records. In those spending records, those purchases or the purchases were all marked Executive Director Clothing Allowance or clothes for ED.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've spent that much money on clothes my whole life.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
True.
Yeah, okay.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and no, we're not like charge clothes. Some of those stores I haven't even heard of, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but of course that's necessary for police reform because he loved the non-existent Rahim so much.
So there's more. One employee who later resigned started seeing the red flags and questioned these charges at the time. Anderson insisted that the group's board had approved the spending. But all 3 members of the nonprofit's board of directors for that year told the Times they had not approved any clothing allowance and would not have. It was a poor use of charity money, they said, especially since everyone at the nonprofit worked remotely from home. Now, Philip Agnew, a board member at the time who runs a liberal political group called Black Men Build, says, no, categorically no, not in a million years. So the board did not approve that spending. And believe it or not, this saga doesn't end there. So stick around for more insanity.
Wow. Well, that's all we have time for today, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching today's video. Do not trust these scams, okay? But I know this audience is way too smart to do that. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time on Bring the Asteroid.